ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जायमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामीनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto 4, Chapter 21, Instructions by Maharaj Prakrit. We are in the section where Prithu Maharaj is describing importance of service to Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. So now we come to text 41. अश्रान्त्यनन्तः खलु तत्त्वकोविदैः श्रद्धाहुतं यन्मुखः युज्यमानैः न वै तथा चेतनया बहिष्कृते हुताशने पारमं सत्स्ययुगः यगुः. Translation.
Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ananta, eats through the fire sacrifices offered in the names of the different demigods, he does not take as much pleasure in eating through fire as he does in accepting offerings through the mouths of learned sages and devotees. For then he does not leave the association of devotees. Purport. According to Vedic injunctions, a fire sacrifice is held in order to give food to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the names of the different demigods. While performing a fire sacrifice, one pronounces the word Swaha in mantras such as Indraya Swaha and Adityaya Swaha. These mantras are uttered to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead through demigods such as Indra and Aditya. For the Supreme Personality of Godhead says, Naham Tishtami Vaikunthe Yoginam Hridayeshuva Tatra Tishtami Narada Yatra Gayanti Madbhaktaha. I am not in Vaikuntha, nor in the hearts of the yogis. I remain where my devotees engage in glorifying my activities. It is to be understood that the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not leave the company of his devotees. Fire is certainly devoid of life, but devotees and Brahmanas are the living representatives of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, to feed Brahmanas and Vaishnavas is to feed the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly. It may be concluded that instead of offering fire sacrifices, one should offer foodstuffs to Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, for that process is more effective than fire yajna. The vivid example of this principle in action was given by Advaita Prabhu. When he performed the Shraddha ceremony for his father, he first of all called Haridas Thakur and offered him food. It is the practice that after finishing the Shraddha ceremony, one should offer food to an elevated Brahmana. But Advaita Prabhu offered food first to Haridas Thakur, who had taken his birth in a Mohammedan family. Therefore, Haridas Thakur asked Advaita Prabhu why he was doing something which might jeopardize his position in Brahmana society. Advaita Prabhu replied that he was feeding millions of first class Brahmanas by offering the food to Haridas Thakur. He was prepared to talk with any learned Brahmana on this point and prove definitely that by offering food to a pure devotee like Haridas Thakur, he was equally as blessed as he would have been by offering food to thousands of learned Brahmanas. When performing sacrifices, one offers oblations to the sacrificial fire, but when such oblations are offered to Vaishnavas, they are certainly more effective. Hare Krishna.
Further, Prithu Maharaj describes that service to the Brahmanas and especially the Vaishnavas, the Lord eats through their mouth. So generally, it is accepted fact that whenever there is yajna, yajna kunda is considered as the mouth of Lord Vishnu, and all the ingredients offered in the fire they are considered to be being personally accepted by Lord Vishnu himself. But at the same time, when the same food is offered to the Vaishnavas, or when the prasadam is offered to the Vaishnavas, it is like doing thousands of sacrifices. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions fire sacrifice is held in order to give food to the Supreme Lord in the names of different demigods. And therefore, the Swaha mantras are there. So they are offered to Supreme Lord through Indraya Swaha, through Indra. This offering goes to Supreme Lord, right? Then Chandraya Swaha, Suryaya Swaha, so on and so forth. But whenever we want to offer food to the Supreme Lord, Prabhupada says, first understand where is the Supreme Lord. That the Lord says very clearly, Naham vasami vaikunthe yoginam hridayeshva yatra gayanti mat bhakta tatra tisthami Narada. That my dear Narada, I always remain where my devotees engage in glorifying my activities. Right? Prabhupada says, Lord is so addicted to devotees that he does not leave their company. Fire is certainly devoid of life. So, of course, that is a technical way of pleasing the Lord. But when the prasadam, the food is offered to the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas, it is like doing thousands of fire yajnas. And there is a vivid example of this. Prabhupada says, instead of doing the fire sacrifice, one should do Vaishnava Seva, offering them, the prasad, calling home and offering them prasad. And this is exemplified by Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya is the foremost personality at Navadvip, where, Navadvip was the Cambridge of today, and Advaita Acharya was the Nobel laureate, or the committee which decides to whom to give the Nobel, right? This is the Advaita Acharya. That is the position of Advaita. So all these great personalities, it is beyond our imagination how great they were. Prabodhananda Saraswati, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. We generally just take the names, but these are like who's who personality. Just like sometimes you may go back after yatra and you may just very casually say, I was also dancing in the kirtan along with Krishna Chandra Prabhu, and your friend may faint because he has applied in the some company like NoSil or something like that, whose owner is Krishna Chandra Prabhu. Right. So Advaita Acharya was at that extreme respect position. And there is always the thing that, let us see, there is always the krama in which man a particular personality is to be invited. And whoever Advaita Acharya is going to invite as the first Manapatra of, the Shraddha ceremony of his own father, then that personality is the topmost of the Brahmana. According to Advaita Acharya, he is certifying that. And Advaita Acharya invited Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur is born in a Mohammedan family, right? And by the dint of his devotion, by the dint of his Name Ruchi, he just endured everyone. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu declared him Namacharya. And we know that Namacharya Haridas Thakur is basically the Lord Brahma taking his birth in the Leela of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Advaita and Namacharya Haridas Thakur, he asked him that, my dear Advaita Acharya, if you call me, because that was the time when even a Muslim sprinkles the water on a Hindu, that Hindu will be considered to be Vahishkrut from the Samaj, and he has to literally die or change to, change his dharma and become Muslim. This is how stupid people had understanding previously. Somebody, puts a bread ka tukda in the, well, and then somebody drinks the water from that well, and the person who is drinking the water, his family, and all these people are supposed to be, they were like converted to Christianity. This is how stupid in certain aspects our so-called ancestors were. And thousands of conversions took place in this way. So Haridas Thakur said, my dear Advaitacharya, you associating with me, you speaking with me may consider a blemish on you, and you feeding me, you will lose your caste. Right? Look at the risks what they have taken. And Advaitacharya said, who bothers about all this? And this is how Advaitacharya, he just, he said that feeding you is like feeding 1 billion Brahmanas. And of course, when, see, again, it has to be taken in perspective. Haridas Thakur was a pure devotee. He's Brahma incarnated, and he used to chant 3 lakh names of Krishna every day. Right? So we have, according to time, place, circumstances, yatha shakti, yatha adhikar, we have to get inspired also. So, but the point here is feeding Vaishnava. Prabhupada gives this vivid example for feeding Vaishnavas. And what the literally feeding Vaishnavas means, of course, it also means that you take your friend to Govinda's and sponsor his pizza. And okay, that's fine. That is also feeding Vaishnava in a way. But the feeding Vaishnava means inviting brahmacharis at our home and cooking prasadam for them and serving prasadam to them. Right? This is called as feeding the Vaishnavas. There are different layers of feeding the Vaishnavas. So, but one should take opportunity to cook for the devotees, offer that bhoga to the Supreme Lord, and then feed the Vaishnavas, than just, uh, sponsoring, or of course, sponsoring is also great. Brahman Bhuj is also great, but there are gradations. We may not be able to invite 100 brahmacharis at home, but once in a year, at least one devotee, 2 devotees we invite, cook with great love for them. And, so that is considered as Vaishnava Seva. So Vaishnava Seva, Prabhupada says he was prepared to talk with any learned Brahmana on this point and prove definitely that offering food to the pure devotee like Haridas Thakur, he was equally blessed as he would have been offering food to the thousands of the learned Brahmanas. So this is the importance of Vaishnava Seva that Prithu Maharaj is emphasizing on the citizens, that please perform Vaishnava Seva. Text 42. Yad Brahma Nityam Virajam Sanatanam Shraddha Tapo Mangalamona Sayamai Samadhina Bibhrati Harshta Drashtaye Yatre Dadamadarsha Ivam Amasate. Translation.
In Brahmanical culture, a Brahmana's transcendental position is eternally maintained because the injunctions of the Vedas are accepted with faith, austerity, scriptural conclusions, full sense and mind control, and meditation. In this way, the real goal of life is illuminated just as one's face is fully reflected in a clear mirror. Purport. Since it is described in the previous verse that feeding a living Brahmana is more effective than offering oblations in a fire sacrifice, in this verse it is now clearly described what Brahmanism is and who a Brahmana is. In the age of Kali, taking advantage of the fact that by feeding a Brahmana one obtains a more effective result than by performing sacrifices, a class of men with no Brahmanical qualifications claim the eating privilege known as Brahmana Bhojana simply on the basis of their birth in Brahmana families. In order to distinguish this class of men from the real Brahmanas, Maharaja Prithu is giving an exact description of a Brahmana and Brahmanical culture. One should not take advantage of his position simply to live like a fire without light. A Brahmana must be fully conversant with the Vedic conclusion, which is described in Bhagavad Gita as Vedescha Sarvayar Aham Eva Vaidya. Bhagavad Gita 15.15. The Vedic conclusion, the ultimate understanding or Vedanta understanding is knowledge of Krishna. Actually, that is a fact because simply by understanding Krishna as he is, as described by Bhagavad Gita, Janma Karma Cha Me Divyam Evam Yo Veti Tattvataha, one becomes a perfect Brahmana. The Brahmana who knows Krishna perfectly well is always in a transcendental position. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 14.26, which says, Mam cha yo vyabhicharana bhakti yogen sevate sa gunan samatitya yetana brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotion service and who does not fall down in any circumstance at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahmana.
Yeah, so it's a long purport. We'll go in section.
Yes, Hare Krishna. Yes,
Purtu Maharaj says in Brahminical culture, Brahmana's transcendental position is eternally maintained because he is following the principles of faith, austerity, scriptural conclusions, full sense control and mind control, and meditation. Right. And the real goal of life is thus illuminated, just like one sees oneself in the clean mirror and one will get a perfect picture. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that there is a recommendation of feeding the Brahmana, but that Brahmana has to be a qualified Brahmana. Prabhupada says, let us understand what the Brahmanism is and who is a Brahmana. It is not that simply in the name of a Brahmana, one is arranging some Brahmana Bhojan Yagya, Brahmana Bhojan, and thousands of Brahmanas are being fed. So, just like all the glorious activities the Peshwas did, the one mistake, one of the critical mistake Peshwas did was, the excessive Brahmanism. And, that, of course, people were qualified, but at the same time, they went on to just, just it happened out of control, the whole thing. And then later, it is not very highly appreciated. So then who is a Brahmana? The question is, who is a Brahmana? Prabhupada says Brahmana means he is not like a fire without light. What a statement Prabhupada writes, not a fire without light. What it means is that whenever somebody invites us for prasadam, Raishampur always tells this to, brahmacharis and the senior devotees. He says that whenever somebody invites you for prasadam, it is your duty to enlighten them. At least ask their personal life, at least ask about their, guide them in their personal life, guide them in their spiritual life. Or if it is not like they are asking any question, simply discuss some Krishna Katha. It cannot be fire, light, what it says. Don't be fire without light. The enlightenment has to be always there. And therefore, whenever we have a Brahman Bhoj or, the Vaishnavas coming together, there has to be a topic around Krishna and discussing pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Why? Because simply by understanding Krishna, one can automatically become a Brahmana. Prabhupada says here, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo vetti tatvatah tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna. That simply by understanding the Janma and karma of the Supreme Lord are divyam, tatvatah, and understanding them as it is, one will be eligible to become eligible to liberation, what to speak of just a Brahmana. And therefore, anybody who is engaged in devotional service, what kind of devotional service? Engage in full devotional service, right? And who does not fall down under any circumstance. Mamchayo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan. He at once samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. He at once transcends the three modes of material nature and comes to the level of a Brahmana. Brahman, Prabhupada says. Brahman is not Brahmana, it is Brahman there. Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. So anybody who is performing staunch devotional service, one should not see the background of such a devotee when one is inviting them for prasadam at home, right? Arche Vishnu Shiladir, Guru Shunaramatir, Vaishnave Jati Buddhi. So whenever we are inviting the brahmacharis at our home or some senior grihastas at our home, we should not do the aparad of asking their caste. Vaishnave Jati Buddhi, right? That is a yasyava naraki saha. That is to be considered as a hellish mentality, right? So this is Srila Prabhupada writes, what is the statement? Don't be fire without light. Yeah, please continue.
Therefore, a devotee of Lord Krishna is actually a perfect Brahmana. His situation is transcendental, for he is free from the four defects of conditional life, which are the tendencies to commit mistakes, to be illusioned, to cheat, and to possess imperfect senses. A perfect Vaishnava or Krishna conscious person is always in this transcendental position because he speaks according to Krishna and his representative. Because Vaishnavas speak exactly according to the tune of Krishna, whatever they say is free from these four defects. For example, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that everyone should always think of me, everyone should become his devotee, offer him obeisances, and worship him, and ultimately everyone should surrender unto him. These devotional activities are transcendental and free from mistakes, illusion, cheating, and imperfection. Therefore, anyone who is a sincere devotee of Lord Krishna and who preaches this cult, speaking only on the basis of Krishna's instructions, is understood to be Virajam, or free from the defects of material contamination. A genuine Brahman or Vaishnava therefore depends eternally on the conclusion of the Vedas or Vedic versions presented by the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. Only from Vedic knowledge can we understand the actual position of the Absolute Truth, who, as described in Srimad Bhagavatam, is manifested in three features, namely impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, and at last, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This knowledge is perfect from time immemorial, and the Brahminical or Vaishnava culture depends on this principle eternally. One should therefore study the Vedas with faith, not only for one's personal knowledge, but for the sake of spreading this knowledge and these activities through real faith in the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Vedas.
Yeah. So now, who is the Brahmana? Prabhupada further describes. Brahmana is a person who is devotee of the Supreme Lord. First thing, he is a devotee. And thus he remains, his situation is transcendental and he is free from four defects. So how is free from four defects? He's free from four defects because he's following the instructions of the Supreme Lord and his representatives. He is not changing the message. Prabhupada says he's, I am just a postman. Whatever message is given by the Supreme Lord, that same message is passed on. The Lord says, Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskaro. And the perfect personality will also repeat the same message as it is. And therefore, he is free from the four defects. He is the sincere devotee and preaches the cult of the Supreme Lord. Right. Only on the basis of Krishna's instruction. Lord Krishna has instructed this. Nacha tasmat manusheshu, or kaschin me priyakrittamaha bharat bhumite manushya janma jailayar janma sarthaka kari karo paropakar. The Lord has instructed, and therefore he is preaching according to the instructions of the Supreme Lord. And it depends eternally on the conclusion of the Vedas. He is not so brain fertile that he is deriving some odd conclusions. His conclusions are in sync with the Parampara system. So this is the fourth qualification of being a Brahmana, and thus he perfectly knows the Brahman. He knows the Brahman, the absolute truth, the actual position of the absolute truth, and that is Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti Shabdati. And therefore, Prabhupada says one should study the Vedas not only for self-enlightenment, but also for spreading this knowledge of the Supreme Lord. And this is one of the principle of a Brahmana. Patan Patan, Yajan Yajan, Patan Patan, Dana Aparigraha. So these are the 6 items a Brahmana is supposed to be acting on. So Yajan Yajan, Patan Patan. So Patan Patan means he will study the scriptures and he will teach the scriptures, and this is the position of a Brahmana. Yeah, please continue.
In this verse, the word Mangala, auspicious, is very significant. Srila Sridhara Swami quotes that to do what is good and to reject what is not good is called Mangala or auspicious. To do what is good means to accept everything favorable to the discharge of devotional service, and to reject what is not good means to reject everything not favorable for discharging devotional service. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we accept this principle by rejecting 4 prohibited items, namely illicit sex life, intoxication, gambling, and flesh eating, and accepting the daily chanting of at least 16 rounds of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and meditation 3 times a day by day chanting the Gayatri Mantra. In this way, one can keep his Brahminical culture and spiritual strength intact. By following these principles of devotional service strictly, chanting 24 hours a day the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, one makes positive progress in spiritual life and ultimately becomes completely fit to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. Because the ultimate goal of studying or understanding the Vedic knowledge is to find Krishna. One who follows the Vedic principles as described above can, from the very beginning, see all the features of Lord Krishna, the absolute truth, very distinctly as one can see one's own face completely reflected in a clear mirror. The conclusion is, therefore, that a Brahmana does not become a Brahmana simply because he is a living entity or is born in a Brahmana family. He must possess all the qualities mentioned in the Shastras and practice the Brahmanical principles in his life. Thus, he ultimately becomes a fully Krishna conscious person and can understand what Krishna is, how his devotee continuously sees Krishna face to face within his heart is described in the Brahma Samhita 5.38 as follows. प्रेमाञ्जनच्छुरित भक्ति विलोचनेन सन्तः सदैव हृदयेषु विलोकयन्ति यं श्यामसुन्दरचिन्तगुणस्वरूपं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि. The devotee, by development of pure love for Krishna, constantly sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as Sham Sundara, within his heart. That is the perfectional stage of Brahmanical culture.
The another word used here in this verse is Mangalam. Mangalam means very, very auspicious. So what is auspiciousness? Srila Prabhupada quotes Sridhara Swami, do what is good and reject what is not good is called Mangalam or auspicious. What is Mangalam? Simple it is. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam. So doing what is good, Prabhupada says what is good? The good is, so we have the vidhi and nished. So dharma can be essentially can be defined as 4 activities. Dharma means swadharma, that kalyan, swakalyan, and the parakalyan, and then there is vidhi and nished. That's it. These are the 4 activities. So what is the dharma? One has to perform one's occupational duties very well. Very good. And then one has to do swakalyan. How? By chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Prabhupada says, Satatam Kirtayanto Mam, by chanting the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And following 4 regulative principles, which are the pillars of, avoiding the sinful life. Dyutam Panam Striyam Himsam. So these are the 4 pillars. So, and then spreading the message of the Supreme Lord. These are just the 4 things of dharma, right? There is a swakalyan, there is a parakalyan. Swakalyan by practice sadhana, parakalyan by prachar. And then there is a vidhi. Vidhi is, the chanting the holy names and reading Srimad Bhagavatam, studying Srimad Bhagavatam, and then there is nished. Nished is, the things which are to be strictly avoided. And this is how one will make the positive progress in spiritual life and ultimately become fit to see the Supreme Lord face to face. Prabhupada's words. Right. So this is how one has to develop the qualities. And these qualities are automatically developed when one becomes a devotee of the Supreme Lord. And with a progressive devotional service, Prabhupada says, one will be completely saturated with Krishna Prema. Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena. Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena means, there is whenever Rupa Goswami gives the example that the young boy and a young girl, they are falling in love. The boy will see the girl only everywhere, right? Similarly, the devotee of the Lord, when he's in love with the Supreme Lord, he will see the Lord everywhere. Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaha Sadaiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti. And he will surely see the Supreme Lord in his own heart. And such a stage, observing the Supreme Lord everywhere, Prabhupada says, that is the perfectional stage of Brahminical culture. Right. So how beautifully Prabhupada, the constructs his purport, one can see. Prabhupada says, look at this purport itself. Prabhupada says, who is a Brahmana? And how the Brahmana has to be has to be fire with light. Then there are 6 qualities and 6 activities of the Brahmanas. And how, ultimately the Brahmana has to become a Vaishnava, and Vaishnava is automatically a perfected Brahmana. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai,
Jai.
Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you,
Jai.
Prabhupada. Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Prabhupada.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Dharma Pranam.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.